The Balkans are the most war-torn region in Europe with a dark and tragic history. To cope with the gruesome past, Balkan people have two outlets to turn to: art and humor. Serbian cinema is a perfect example of this, using comedy and narrative art to capture some catastrophic events in a more digestible yet still realistic way. So today I will dive into the legacy of Serbian cinema with three incredible movies that tackle different chapters of Balkan history, and don't worry, I will tell you where you can watch them later in the video. Hello, szia, salut and bok, I'm Anna, the Transylvanian e-hack and certified cat lady here with another random topic from the beautifully messy side of Europe. Today we're gonna dive into a quick history of Serbian cinema, and I will present to you three amazing historical satire movies which depict different chapters of Yugoslav history with a mix of humor and nuance. I chose this topic because I've noticed that lately a lot of people complain about how bad Hollywood movies have gotten. So if you're looking for something different to watch, I've got plenty of recommendations for you, because I switched to Yugoslav, Czechoslovak, Polish and Hungarian films a few years ago. Among those, Serbian historical comedies stood out to me the most, which is why I want to talk about them.
I thought you didn't like Serbia.
Well, I don't like the Serbian government, which is more or less true for all countries that I discuss, but I love Serbian folklore, music, food, drinks, and of course movies.
Okay, I'm unsubscribing.
Oh well, YouTube je činja supy, a moj kanál je Viljuška. Serbian cinema has deep roots, going all the way back to 1896 with a silent film about Karađorđe, a key figure in Serbia's fight for independence from the Ottomans. After World War I, when Serbia became part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, new laws were introduced to boost local cinema, especially focusing on historical themes, which led to a surge in film production. After World War II, Yugoslavia's Federal Committee for Cinematography started producing epic partisan films that highlighted collective struggle over individual heroism, mirroring the political beliefs of the only dictator people look back to with fondness, the goat himself, Josip Broz Tito. That's right, folks, using movies as political propaganda isn't exclusive to Hollywood. And regarding Tito, well, people tend to idolize him due to his charisma, and although he was not nearly as bad as our not-so-beloved Ceausescu, he was still a dictator, so let's not forget that here. In the 60s, a new movement of cinema called the Black Wave emerged, diving into darker, more provocative themes. Despite government censorship, it gained international recognition and left a lasting mark on Serbian cinema. The 1980s were a golden era, giving us classics like Who's Singing Over There, Balkan Spy, Balkan Express, and The Marathon Family, which are still considered gems of Yugoslav cinema. Most of you probably know about the controversial comedy movies from the 90s and early 2000s, directed by Emir Kusturica, featuring iconic music by Goran Bregovic and Bijelo Dugme. These movies stirred up some controversy due to Kusturica's almost Vijabu-like take on Roma culture, not to be confused with Romanians, Nemešati babe I žabe. And when I say Vijabu-like, I mean romanticizing a culture based on surface-level knowledge and offensive stereotypes. But I also have Romani friends who absolutely love Black Cat, White Cat, so I might be just yapping. After the Yugoslav wars and Serbia's independence, the local cinema scene took a hit due to privatization, with Hollywood blockbusters taking over the local screens. New movies still pop up now and then, but they just don't measure up to the certified Yugo classics. All in all, the most significant Serbian films tackle political themes and social commentary, often using satire to do so. And when I say satire, I'm talking about stuff like Kurt Vonnegut's books or Alo Alo, and not the flimsy excuse edgy kids use on the internet when they realize that freedom of speech doesn't equal freedom of consequence. To really appreciate Serbian cinema, I've got to introduce you to three of my favorite films that capture some of the darkest moments in Yugoslavia's history.
But where can I watch them?
Shh, I'll tell you later. So without further ado, let's dissect these movies. Who's Singing Over There, or Ko to tamo peva, is a historical comedy from 1980 that became a huge hit in the Balkans. So what is it about? The movie follows a group of people on a bus ride to Belgrade on the 5th of April 1941. If you know Serbian history and know what happened the next day, you're probably like, oh no. And if you don't, In short, the Nazis invaded Belgrade in April 1941, launching a massive bombing campaign and dropping around 400 tons of bombs. The city was left in ruins and thousands of civilians were tragically killed. I mean, it's the 40s, what did you expect to happen? The bombing was designed to crush the Yugoslav resistance, and German forces occupied the city until it was liberated in 1944.
But how can such a dark event be the focus of a comedy?
Well, never underestimate the Balkans' knack for finding humor in our own misery. The movie kicks off with the iconic song Za Beograd, performed by young Roma singers Miograd and Nenad Kostic. The tune starts off somber, but quickly turns upbeat and quirky when the jaw harp joins the chat. We meet a strange group of people waiting for the bus, which is of course running late. Shocking. Then we finally get to see the bus. As someone who's been around several Balkan countries by public transportation, I'm not gonna say that our buses are still this bad. I would say it's fucking worse. The bus is run by a family business with a classic Balkan dad in charge and his young, overly innocent son driving. And like every real Balkan business owner, they managed to turn everything into a scam or some sort of profit.
Šta smo dužni? Koliko?
100 dinara mi platite.
Dakle, ovako, ljudi traže da im se plati gaženje orana. Koliko? Mnogo. 200 dinara.
And they even put people's lives in danger over grudges or bragging rights. The movie's character-driven story centers around the bizarre mix of passengers with opposing political beliefs, life stages, and personal flaws. You got this pair, one is a proud Serbian patriot and the other one is a Nazi sympathizer. You can look at them and see if you can figure out which one is which. There's also an older, sickly man on the brink of death and a young married couple just starting up their life. Then you have this pretentious professional singer with a huge ego contrasted with a couple of naturally talented, laid-back guys. What? These guys? I would have never guessed. Plus the innocent son and his money-hungry father. There's also a random old lady quietly mewing in the corner the whole time, and I didn't even notice her when I watched the movie in the first few times. The story subtly shines a light on various societal issues and human flaws like hypocrisy, prejudice, envy, lust, greed, and pride, which triggers different conflicts among the passengers, adding to the drama.
Nemačka medicina je najbolja na svetu.
Kanda bi se obradovao da dođu, a?
Pa znate šta, bar bi se znao red i disciplina. Znalo bi se ko šta radi.
Te švabove treba sve uzeti.
Their journey is constantly disrupted by political tension and the army's actions like closing roads and damaging bridges with tanks. There are plenty of moments where the passengers could get fed up and just say, "Screw you guys, I'm going home." That was a horrible impression.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Despite the interruptions, they remain on the road to Belgrade, and given the historical context, we know that they are headed towards a tragic fate, which gives the film an ominous vibe even with all the jokes and comedic mishaps. Even though it's an old, low-budget film, it's a total hashtag masterpiece. The plot might seem simple, but the pacing is so spot on with some seriously impressive comedic timing. The real star here is of course the character dynamics, especially the father and son duo. It's refreshing to see a healthy family relationship in a movie. Well, healthy by Balkan standards. The humor ranges from witty and absurd to slapstick, and I've got a soft spot for the random visual gags that you only get in old Yugo movies. And let's not forget the fantastic acting, especially by Danilo Bata Stojkovic and Pavle Vujicic, who are legends in Serbian cinema. This film also features one of Neda Arneric's earliest roles, and she's basically the Aubrey Hepburn of the Balkans, so she totally knocks it out of the park. The way some of the shots are framed is genuinely beautiful, even with its simplicity. The music is great too. The intro song pops up several times throughout the film. Whenever there's a tense or emotional moment, we get a little break with these guys singing. And that yoy at the end of every verse. Only the most miserable Balkan people can deliver it like that. A slower flute version of the song makes an appearance during quiet moments, adding a nice touch, and that jaw harp melody also makes the bus ride feel pretty humorous. In tense scenes, the music of course drops out, leaving just the sound of the bus rolling through the fields. It feels like this movie is mocking today's Hollywood execs, practically shouting, "Look at us, we don't need a big budget or flashy effects to make a great film." It shows that the secret to a good movie is solid writing, and who's singing over there definitely nails it. It's a fantastic fantastic time capsule that captures a key moment in Yugoslav history and reflects how people look back on those events. It's definitely worth a watch. Funnily enough, I'm quite familiar with director Slobodan Shian's work, but this is the only one of his movies that I actually enjoyed, even though this was his first work. His most famous movie is The Marathon Family, which features a lot of the same cast, but I cannot stand it. If you watch Who's Singing Over There and like it, I suggest checking out the Yugo-Croatian film Ha Osam or H8. It dives into the events leading up to the worst traffic accident in Yugoslavia's history. And just a heads up, it's a lot more serious and less humorous than this one. I just found out that you're not subscribed to my channel.
Why?
Subscribe. Balkan Spy or Balkanski Špijun is a 1984 movie about a paranoid ex-Stalinist who served prison time due to his beliefs and becomes convinced that his tenant is a spy, leading to absurd and ultimately tragic actions as he tries to unmask a supposed conspiracy. If you don't know the lore of Kalmyara Yugoslavia, you might be wondering, what in the name of the devil is going on? Well, after World War II, Yugoslavia regained control over its former territories with Soviet help, but quickly distanced itself from Stalin in 1948 during the Tito-Stalin split. Tito refused to follow Soviet directives, choosing an independent socialist path that better suited Yugoslavia's needs. This move set Yugoslavia apart from the rest of the Eastern Bloc, making it more liberal, though still tightly controlled by the Communist Party. And when I say liberal, I mean the traditional definition of the word, not what politically illiterate people use that word for on social media. With that, Stalinist beliefs could land you free accommodation for a few years in prison. There are aspects of life under communism that you won't find out in history books, and only the people who lived through it truly understand. Now, I personally was raised by people who experienced it firsthand and told me about it, and according to them, a flawed ideology like communism relies on enforcement to gain acceptance, creating a climate of oppression and paranoia. Because of this, people lived in constant fear, worrying that saying or even thinking the wrong things could lead to harsh punishments. People were often imprisoned for merely being remotely associated with someone the state deemed dangerous to the order of things, much like being cancelled on social media for following someone slightly controversial on Twitter.
That analogy is so cringe.
Come on, I had to find a way to make it relatable for the younger viewers. This led to the development of a major snitching problem where you couldn't trust your friends, neighbors, or even your landlord. Now, Balkan Spy perfectly captures this atmosphere. After a police inspector casually questions Ilya about his tenant, a former tailor in France who returned to Serbia to start a local business, Ilya's imagination runs wild. He starts thinking, that tenant is probably a dangerous terrorist, or even worse, a capitalist. Convinced of this, Ilya desperately searches for evidence to justify his paranoia, misinterpreting every detail and jumping to absurd conclusions. As his delusions take over, Ilya's life begins to unravel. He becomes obsessed with playing detective, wasting time and money, which costs him his job, puts him in debt, and strains his family to the breaking point. His obsession not only sabotages the lives of his tenant and friends, but also drags his entire family into the chaos. Eventually, Ilya becomes convinced that everyone around him is a traitor, plotting against him because of his quote-unquote discovery. What begins as a lighthearted, goofy misunderstanding gradually spirals into the tragic downfall of a man too loyal to the state. The film explores themes like paranoia, the constant political shifts in 20th century Europe, and Yugoslavia's economic struggles of the time, all with a mix of humor and death. My favorite element in the movie is the family dynamic between Ilya, his wife and daughter, and let's be real, you haven't experienced true success in life until your dad congratulates you with that handshake. The movie also explores the theme of shared paranoia, where Ilya manages to drag others into his delusions, to the point that they began to vehemently believe that the normal people who are still in touch with reality are the crazy ones, and they are also part of the problem. It's like that weird subset of people online who think that the Matrix is out to get them.
Stop it.
The movie also addresses the social and economic challenges of the time, such as educated, hardworking people struggling to find jobs, while those with connections connections thrive. There's also the difficulty of finding decent housing, starting a business, dealing with bureaucracy, lack of access to medications, and the dehumanizing treatment by the state. All of these were common issues in all communist countries in the 80s. I'm glad to say that things have changed in the recent decades. Now the entire world has the same problems, not just us. Welcome to the 2020s. The strongest point of this movie is the acting. I've seen several movies featuring Bata, who plays a variety of characters with different political views, and his mustache always reflects who he's simping for. And I have to point out the obvious: if you live in the Balkans, you definitely have an uncle who looks and talks exactly like this. Same mustache, same mannerisms. He also probably has heart problems, yet drinks like his liver has a backup. His acting was especially good at the end, where his delivery of his delirious monologue gave me goosebumps. We got two more standout performances in the mix. Zvonko Lepetic, the legendary Croatian Yugoslav actor, nails it as Ilya's brother. And Maria Banjac, who's still kicking it in the industry despite her age, and she shines as Ilya's wife. The movie was written and directed by Dusan Kovacevic, who also worked on Who's Singing Over There as a screenwriter, and even teamed up with Emir Kusturica on the 1995 film Underground. Despite its simple setup, the direction is incredibly sharp. My favorite scene is when Ilya lays out the results of his detective work, showing off photos of the tenant while flashbacks reveal the actual, far more mundane reality. It's a brilliant way to highlight how off the rails his delusions have gone.
Danice, šta bi ti rekla kad bi vidjela ovog čovjeka, a da ne znaš ko je?
Pa, običan čovjek.
Službenik, činovnik, učitelj, jel tako izgleda Danice?
Tako.
Vidiš, Danice, kako si naivna. A on je naučnik, radi u Vinči, profesor atomske fizike.
Sad je meni jasno.
Since it's a dark comedy, it tackles all these heavy topics with absurd humor, satire, and classic Balkan slapstick jokes. I also love the subtle touch of the clock going cuckoo every time Ilya says something off the wall. Some scenes are also reminiscent of old Logan Paul travel vlogs. Subscribe if you're sad. Of course, you can't have a Serbian movie without the clever use of music. On one hand, we have this marching band constantly annoying the hell out of Ilya, and on the other hand, we get some quirky frantic turbo folk, or whatever you call this genre, to signify Ilya's mental state. To be honest, I'm surprised this movie wasn't banned in Yugoslavia in the 80s, given its criticism of the government and the political state of the country. It's a brave and honest portrayal of that era, and it lets us get a sense of what our parents and grandparents who lived under commie dictatorships went through during those days. It's definitely one of my favorites, and I definitely didn't force someone to watch this while we were on a date. Who am I kidding? Of course, I've got a whole collection of anti-communist movies to cuddle to. If you enjoyed this, definitely check out The Witness, Cozy Dance, and The Earth's Most Beloved Son to get a feel for coming out of Central and Eastern Europe from those who actually lived through it. And be sure to show them to your weird first world country friends who still think that communism sounds like a good idea. Pretty Village, Pretty Flame, or Lepa Sela, Lepo Gore, is a gripping anti-war film released in 1996. The movie delves deep into the horrors of the Bosnian War, as seen through the eyes of a wounded Serbian soldier, focusing on the ethnic conflict that erupted after Yugoslavia's breakup. Because of its Serbian perspective, the film was often dismissed upon release as a pro-Serb fascist movie, and it was kept out of award contests. To those who write such reviews, I have to ask, did you even watch it? If you don't understand why a Serbian perspective on the Bosnian War might be controversial for some people, oh boy, let's get into it. Yugoslavia encompassed regions populated by different ethnic and religious groups who had centuries-long beef with complex and messy reasons for their mutual dislike. This is particularly true for the region of present-day Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is inhabited by Muslim Bosniaks, Orthodox Serbs, and Catholic Croats. To get a sense of how bad the conflict between these three groups still is, the president of Bosnia's Jewish community once said, "There is no anti-Semitism in Bosnia. The three ethnic groups are so dedicated to hate each other, they don't find time to hate Jewish people too." So yeah, that's the vibe we are dealing with here. Now, when Tito was around, it seemed like his political strategies were successful at keeping the peace, but after his death, things fell apart. Yugoslavia faced political and economic turmoil, which led to its breakup and the Yugoslav Wars. In Bosnia, after the 1992 referendum for independence, Bosnian Serbs, backed by the Yugoslav Yugoslav army rejected the results and mobilized to claim Serb territory. This quickly escalated into widespread ethnic cleansing and war crimes which were so brutal that if I went into details, YouTube would probably nuke my channel. All I can say is burning down villages was a common practice at that time. The mainstream media often oversimplifies the whole conflict as Serbs bad, ignoring a much more complex reality, forgetting that the decisions of a government and the leaders of an army do not represent the views of an entire ethnic group. The truth is, war is never that simple, and Pretty Village, Pretty Flame captures this complexity, telling the heartbreaking story of how friends and family in a multi-ethnic region are torn apart, forced by those in power to turn against each other. The movie sets off with a message dedicated to the film industry of a country that no longer exists. We see a fake 1971 news report celebrating the opening of Bosnia's Brotherhood and Unity Tunnel with over-the-top praise, while kids sing the famous Yugoslav partisan song Už Maršala Tita. During the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Bosnian Yugoslav Prime Minister Cemal Bijedić accidentally cuts his finger in a very bizarre sequence of events, and flash forward less than a decade later, we see our main character Milan, a Serbian Orthodox kid, and his best friend Halil, a Muslim Bosniak, standing in front of the now crumbled and abandoned tunnel, too scared to go inside because people say it's haunted by a Drekavac. If you're not sure what a Drekavac is, I suggest you look up South Slavic mythology on YouTube. I heard there's a channel that covers it pretty well. Throughout the movie, we catch glimpses of Milan and Halil's childhood and youth, sharing their most formative memories together, only to see it all fall apart as they end up on opposite sides of the war. The main plot follows a group of Serbian soldiers and a foreign journalist trapped in an abandoned tunnel besieged by Bosniaks. Through flashbacks, we see Milan and Halil's friendship, the events of the war, and the heartbreaking stories of each soldier that brought them to this point. There are also flash forwards to when some manage to escape and end up in a military hospital in Belgrade. The film doesn't hold back on showing the horrors of war, vividly depicting its dehumanizing effects and the emotional toll on those trapped. It also offers a strong take on political propaganda, bad journalism, and the world's indifference to the people caught in the crossfire.
But how is this a comedy?
Well, that's a good question. Amidst the darkness, humor shines through, especially in the soldiers' attempt to laugh off their fear and misery, as Balkan people do. Some of the jokes hit hard, especially the one where they announced Tito's death, which I definitely can't show on YouTube, and the Diet Coke scene.
Ma uzmi bre, one cuka. Izvini. Diet Coke.
It's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, and I feel bad for even laughing at it.
Give me 4.
The movie's atmosphere is truly haunting. We're not only stuck in that cramped tunnel with the soldiers running out of resources and unsure if help will come, but we also witness people completely out of touch with reality, showing zero empathy for the victims. One scene that really got under my skin shows a group of protesters singing "Give Peace a Chance" while disrespecting the injured soldiers. They reminded me of people today who use current tragedies as social media aesthetics, putting up flags of countries they couldn't find on a map in their Twitter bios and harassing random YouTubers for drinking Starbucks. The hospital staff's casual attitude towards the soldiers only adds to the frustration, and as does seeing people profit from the conflict. The film doesn't hold back in exposing the hypocrisy of military leaders, the absurdity of nationalist propaganda, and the harmful influence of the media.
Joj, šta rade ovi po Sarajevu? Majko presveta. Ubiše čovjeka na svadbi.
Jebale te večernje novosti. Što ne čitaš Oslobođenje?
Nekako su mi prevelike. Ko plahta. Ne mogu ih držati u rukama.
Onda i procri napod. Klekni i čitaj.
Ono jesu, za molitvu su dobre.
It highlights how Serbian propaganda brainwashed people into believing that they were the victims, showing an accurate yet comedic portrayal of the type of people who fall for the nationalist propaganda spread by the media in a scene that made me chuckle. Foreign media is also criticized for their dehumanizing portrayal of Serbs, with one soldier even saying that foreign media describes them as if they came from Hitler's testicles. This kind of coverage still happens today with every ongoing conflict, and if you dare to suggest that you don't want innocent people from any side of the conflict to die, you will get immediately labeled a fascist for some reason.
What does a fascist mean? It means you are a far right authorization Alternative. Oh my god!
Given the topic, the narration style and the atmosphere, I suspect that director Srđan Dragojević was a huge fan of Kurt Vonnegut. In case you don't know me, hi, I'm Anna, I love anti-war books and movies, and Slaughterhouse-5 is my favorite novel. The shot framing is fantastic, though I am not sure how much I can show on YouTube because of all the death and stuff. The acting is top-notch, especially Velimir Bata Živojinović. Seriously, why do Serbs nickname all of their great actors as Bata? He's a legend of Yugoslav cinema, with a career that started back in the 50s, and he was also in Balkan Spy. Nikola Kojo also delivers an amazing performance, and I'm honestly surprised I haven't seen more of his work.
Ako sluša, nek čuje bol u pjesmi koju pjevam njoj, samo njoj.
One of my favorite parts of this movie is its clever use of music. In the hospital scenes, for example, there's a wounded soldier singing war songs from different Balkan eras. You also hear snippets of old Yugo hits, partisan songs and comic classics. Also, I need to explain why this scene is so good. Back in the 90s, a lot of catchy war music was released to boost morale for every side, often paired with romanticized battle footage, which has become super popular in recent years thanks to social media. In this clip, the music starts with that familiar catchy vibe and war imagery, but then it suddenly cuts to harsh gunfire and crying animals. Despite seeing the guy doing Fortnite emotes on the battlefield, the sudden muting of the song pulls us out of the 90s music video vibe, reminding us that this was real and a tragic chapter in European history. The movie never portrays the soldiers' actions as righteous or justified, regardless of how they ended up in these situations. And in one heartbreaking scene, Milan is even forced to experience the horrors from the victim's perspective and fully grasps the severity of these atrocities. Later in the movie, we find out that the village they set on fire in the scene is called Kurtalici. According to the Balkan mass grave database, yes, that's a thing, and it's tragic that we need something like this. A mass grave was uncovered in that village in 2000. When the Drina River's water level dropped near the Bosnian-Serbian border, it exposed the remains of 62 Bosniak civilians, which is just awful. My only gripe with the movie was the translation. I've only been learning Serbo-Croatian for a few years, but even I noticed the issues. First off, the title got butchered. Lepa sela lepo gore translates as Pretty Villages Burn Nicely, which sounds way more intense than Pretty Village, Pretty Flame. The title is actually a reference to the work of French author Louis Ferdinand Céline, who wrote about World War I in a similar style. They also skipped or toned down every Pizda Materino and Jebem Liti Mater, which are often thrown around to highlight the tension of the conversations, and the dialogue loses impact when you translate them as oh damn. In conclusion, war is bad, nationalism is bad, journalism is bad, and humans are humans. If you love anti-war stories, I can 100% recommend you this one. I laughed, I cried, I audibly gasped several times, and if anyone still thinks it's a pro-Serb fascist nationalist film, that's just not true. They only insult Croats 3 times in the whole 2-hour movie, unlike real Serb nationalists in my comment section who can do it like 11 times in a 3-sentence comment. Jokes aside, if you want to see another great dark comedy movie about the Bosnian War, written and directed by a former soldier of the Bosnian army, you should check out No Man's Land.
Koji vas je kurac tjerao da rasturate ovu lijepu zemlju? Jel bilo mjesta za sve? Jel bilo mjesta za sve?
Mi rasturili.
Vi rasturili?
Pa ti nisi normalna. Pa nismo mi htjeli da se odvajamo, nego vi.
Pa normalno da smo htjeli da se odvajamo kad ste vi počeli rat.
Pa vi ste počeli rat, vi ste htjeli da se odvajamo. Vi ste počeli rat.
Ko je počeo rat? Ko je počeo rat?
Mi smo počeli rat.
Vi ste počeli rat.
I'm probably going to hell because these 2 movies made me laugh at the Bosnian War several times, which is something I thought I would never do. Also, the claustrophobic wheel of Pretty Village, Pretty Flame and its take on the hypocrisy of those in power reminded me of the 2023 Romanian film Libertatea, which covers a dark aftermath of the anti-communist revolution, which most people don't even know about. So that's it, folks. Go watch every movie I mentioned in this video.
But where?
This video is not sponsored by EasternEuropeanMovies.com, which is a great site for old Bulgarian, Czechoslovakian, Hungarian, Romanian, Polish and Yugoslav movies, even though they are not all technically Eastern European. I cancelled my Netflix a while ago and this is my go-to now. The site lets you filter by country and genre and sort by IMDb score, which makes finding awesome films super easy. Again, not sponsored, but I really should be, because I would promote the hell out of them. Although Yugoslavs, especially Serbs, produced a large number of amazing movies, most people have never heard of them. I'm glad I discovered these films a while ago, and I enjoyed rewatching them while working on this script, despite their dark themes. So if you're also tired of Hollywood cringe, check out some old Yugoslav or Czechoslovak movies. I hope you will enjoy them as much as I did, and I hope you didn't get bored while I accidentally managed to give you a surface level Yugoslav history lesson. I would suggest watching some documentaries on the topic, but the ones I found are full of contemporary political biases, so I don't really want to recommend them. I personally prefer an objective and partial presentation of such subjects. So yeah, but enough about my opinions. If you made it this far into the video, you're the real MVP. Here are some treats for you. Comment thanks for the gomboce to confuse the new viewers. If you want to see more content about Central and Eastern Europe, subscribe and check out my other videos. Thanks for tuning in and have a nice day.